Have you ever trusted someone so deeply only to feel the ground vanish beneath your feet? Sometimes betrayal doesn't shout, it whispers, it smiles, and then it leaves you shattered. As the Stoics taught us, pain is not the enemy. Illusion is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. But what happens when no one shows up with the truth? Only manipulation?" In today's episode, we go deep into the kind of betrayal that doesn't just wound the heart, it shakes your identity. Through the lens of Stoic wisdom and emotional clarity, we'll uncover the 3 types of betrayals you must never forgive. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. This isn't about holding grudges, it's about holding the line between who you were and who you're becoming. Welcome to the Chill Stoic. Let's begin. Part 1. Disloyalty. The slow collapse of trust. They smiled at you like a friend and left like a stranger. You gave your time, your energy, your love, thinking it meant something, but instead of loyalty, you were met with silence. Or worse, indifference. Disloyalty rarely arrives with warning. It comes like a slow leak in the foundation. You don't notice it at first, until the ground begins to give way beneath everything you thought was real. And when it happens, it doesn't just hurt, it changes you. Not instantly, not dramatically, but deeply, quiet. That version of you who believed in people without proof, that part begins to disappear. The Stoics taught that our peace depends not on others, but on our expectations. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And when we crave loyalty from those who are incapable of it, we bankrupt ourselves emotionally. You see, disloyalty is never an accident. It's not confusion, it's not poor timing. It's a choice, made fully aware and often with a calculated smile. If you let people remain in your life after they've revealed their true nature, you're not practicing forgiveness, you're practicing self-abandonment. Think about it. How many times have you allowed someone to stay, even after they switched sides when things got hard, when your name left their lips in a different tone the moment you left the room? Every time you excuse that, you're teaching your soul it doesn't matter. And that's where the true damage begins, not from them, but from you. Loyalty is not about convenience, it's about presence, being there when it's not fun anymore, when there's nothing to gain, when you've messed up and they stay, not to judge, but to support. If you're the only one loyal in the relationship, that's not love, that's erosion disguised as affection. Though here's what you must do. Observe the energy. Notice how people react to your wins. Do they celebrate you? Or do they shrink from the light you bring? Psychologists call this covert envy, when someone pretends to support you but subconsciously competes with you. According to Dr. Brené Brown, true belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. So if you feel the need to shrink to fit someone else's comfort, you've already outgrown them. Part 2. How to identify hidden disloyalty before it destroys you. Disloyalty isn't always loud. Sometimes it wears a mask of politeness, helpfulness, even love. It doesn't stab you in the chest. It quietly drifts away when you need it most. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It's not betrayal with a bang. It's erosion with a whisper. You share your dreams, and they go silent. You open your heart, and they change the subject. You struggle, and suddenly, they're too busy. These are the moments most people miss. Because they're not obvious, they're subtle shifts in energy, but they speak louder than any words. A loyal person doesn't disappear when you're at your lowest. They don't flinch when things get uncomfortable. They don't compete when you're finally shining. They stand next to you, firm, steady, unshaken. If someone claps the loudest when you're losing, but goes silent when you're winning, that's not support, that's resentment. And resentment left unspoken turns into sabotage. The Stoics had a word for this kind of unseen betrayal: apatheia, not in the modern sense of apathy, but the ability to remain undisturbed by those who do not act with virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." But he didn't say that so you'd be bitter. He said it so you'd be prepared. Because betrayal hurts less when you expect less. That doesn't mean you become cold, it means you become clear. Clarity is what separates the Stoic man from the naive. The Stoic doesn't assume loyalty, he observes it. He doesn't chase connection, he evaluates it. Watch how they speak about you when you're not in the room. Watch how they act when you share good news. Watch who disappears when life gets inconvenient. According to behavioral researcher Dr. John Gottman, one of the strongest indicators of a failed relationship is contempt. That subtle form of emotional withdrawal where one person sees themselves as better, smarter, or more deserving than the other. If someone consistently dismisses your pain, your joy, or your growth, they are quietly telling you who they are. Believe them. You don't need to fight, you don't need to argue, you don't even need to explain. You just need to adjust your access. Don't give backstage passes to people who wouldn't even buy a ticket to your life. Because the longer you let them stay, the more you become a stranger to yourself. You lower your voice, you edit your dreams, you doubt your intuition, and slowly your soul begins to shrink. So today, take inventory. Who adds peace to your life? Who drains it? Who supports you in public but resents you in private? And most importantly, who are you pretending doesn't hurt you just to avoid being alone? Because loneliness is temporary, but peace, once earned, is permanent. And the day you stop begging others to be loyal is the day you finally become loyal to yourself. Part 3. The cost of staying silent after being betrayed. Silence can be noble, but when it follows betrayal, silence becomes a prison. You don't speak, not because you've healed, but because you don't want to seem weak. You tell yourself it's fine, while your mind replays every detail like a broken record. And here's the truth. What you don't express, your body remembers. Psychology calls it emotional suppression, and studies show it leads to chronic stress, anxiety, even physical illness. Because when the wound is real, silence is not strength, it's suffocation. You walk into rooms carrying invisible weight. You laugh on the outside, but inside there's a storm. Not of anger, but of confusion. How could someone you trusted turn so easily? The Stoics would say, pain is a signal, not a punishment. It's there to wake you up, not to destroy you. So ask yourself, what has your silence cost you? Your sleep, your self-worth, your ability to trust? Each time you tell yourself, it's nothing, you lie to your soul, and your soul hears you. When betrayal goes unaddressed, it breeds self-doubt. You begin to wonder, was I too much? Too trusting? Was it me? But the truth is simpler than that. Some people cannot love what they cannot control, and your loyalty challenged their power. That's why they walked away, not because you were wrong, but because you were whole. And wholeness intimidates those who are still fragmented. You don't need to get revenge. You don't need to make them see. You just need to stop explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. The Stoic man chooses peace, not passivity. He doesn't suppress. He transforms. He turns pain into clarity. So today, if your throat still tightens when you think of them, breathe. If your heart still races when you see their name, pause. That's not a sign you're broken. That's a sign you're still healing. But healing cannot begin in silence. It begins in honesty. Tell the truth. If not to them, then to yourself. Say it. I was betrayed, I was loyal, I was hurt, but I refuse to stay small because of it. Because staying silent doesn't protect your peace, it prolongs your prison. And once you name the wound, you can finally start to let it go. Part 4. Rebuilding your inner circle with Stoic standards. After betrayal, there's a moment of silence that feels like death, but it's not the end. It's the space between who you were and who you choose to become next. This moment is sacred because in that stillness, you get to rebuild, not with revenge, but with vision. The Stoics didn't teach us to trust blindly. They taught us to test everything by its virtue, by its consistency, by its effect on our inner peace. Your inner circle should not just be familiar, it should be aligned. So ask yourself, do the people closest to you uplift your energy or leave you questioning your worth? Do they make you feel seen or just watched? Rebuilding your circle means raising your standards without apology. It means you stop entertaining anyone who makes you feel like you're too much, too emotional, too intense for simply being honest. As Ryan Holiday writes in the Daily Stoic, if you want to be unbreakable, you must first be unshakable in your principles. Your standards are not walls, they are doors. They don't keep love out, they keep manipulation from getting in. And no, not everyone will understand the new you. Some will say you've changed. Some will say you've become distant. But here's the truth, you didn't change, you evolved. And the only ones who resent that are those who benefited from your smaller self. When you rebuild your circle, it won't be as big, it won't be as loud, but it will be solid and it will be sacred. Let this become your new rule. If they drain you more than they pour into you, they don't belong near your future. And when someone proves to you through patterns, not promises, that they are not safe, you do not owe them continued access. Forgiveness doesn't require proximity. You can release someone and still never let them near you again. According to psychologist Dr. Henry Cloud, you get what you tolerate. If you tolerate betrayal disguised as kindness, you'll keep living in a loop of emotional sabotage. So break the cycle, tighten the circle, and choose people who choose you, with presence, with integrity, with consistency. Because a man aligned with his values no longer begs for company, he attracts alignment. And when your inner circle is built on trust, truth, and shared growth, you don't have to keep looking over your shoulder. You move forward, with peace, with purpose, with power. Part 5. Why loyalty to yourself must come first. Most people demand loyalty from others, yet constantly abandon themselves. They silence their intuition. They override their boundaries. They shrink their truth, all in the name of keeping the peace. But here's the paradox. When you sacrifice yourself to keep someone else, you end up losing both. The Stoics were brutally honest about this. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." It starts with a declaration, not to the world, but to yourself. I will no longer betray myself to protect those who wouldn't flinch if I disappeared. I will no longer seek validation from those who benefit from my silence. Because the real betrayal, it's not always what they did, it's what you tolerated after you knew better. And yes, that part hurts. The moment you realize you saw the signs but stayed anyway. But don't hate yourself for it. Honor the version of you that loved fully, that tried, that gave. You didn't fail. You simply didn't know what you know now. You see, self-loyalty isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's not pushing people away, it's pulling yourself back home, to your values, your clarity, your inner peace. Science backs this up. According to Dr. Kristen Neff, a leading researcher in self-compassion, when we're kind to ourselves, we are actually more resilient, not less. In other words, self-loyalty doesn't make you weaker, it makes you unbreakable. So start today. Say no when you mean no. Leave when the energy drains you. Speak when the truth burns in your chest. You're not here to be everything to everyone. You're here to be fully yourself, with a loyalty so strong, no betrayal from the outside can break the peace you've built within. The more loyal you become to your peace, the less chaos feels like love. The more loyal you become to your values, the easier it is to walk away without needing closure. And the more loyal you become to your future, the less interest you'll have in repairing what already fractured your past. So don't ask who's loyal to you. Ask this: Am I finally loyal to myself? Because once you are, betrayal loses all its power. Part 6. When betrayal comes from the ones you loved the most. The deepest wounds aren't caused by enemies, they're carved by the hands you once held, the voices you trusted, the hearts you called home. And what hurts most isn't what they did, but the fact that they knew how much it would break you, and chose to do it anyway. It's not betrayal that destroys us, it's the silence afterward, the overthinking, the unanswered questions that keep us awake, not because we miss them, but because we miss who we thought they were. You let them in, you made space for them in your future, you softened your guard, opened your soul, and that vulnerability became their opportunity, not to grow with you, but to wound you. The Stoics taught that pain is not the enemy, illusion is. Seneca said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And when betrayal comes from someone you love, simply continuing to love yourself, life, truth, is an act of quiet rebellion. So don't harden your heart. Don't turn cold just because they couldn't match your warmth. Bitterness doesn't make you strong, it makes you stuck. Strength is staying soft in a world that tried to harden you. You were not foolish for loving deeply. That wasn't a weakness, it was your humanity. You risked connection in a world of masks. You gave when others calculated, and that says more about you than it ever will about them. What matters now is what you do with the pain. Will you use it to justify distance, or will you use it to define your standards? Will you replay the past, or will you rebuild your future? You owe no one an explanation for choosing peace. The ones who betrayed you already told you who they were. Now it's time you tell the world who you are, not with words, but with presence, discipline, and boundaries. And if the memories still sting, let them. That sting is proof that your heart still works, that you still care. But caring no longer means keeping the door open to those who slammed it in your face. The greatest power you now hold is this: you didn't let their betrayal destroy the good in you. You didn't let heartbreak turn you hollow. You stayed true. You stayed human. And in a world that often rewards numbness, that's a victory worth honoring. Part 7. Turning betrayal into power. The Stoic path forward. Betrayal will either break you or build you, and the difference is choice. Not the choice they made, but the one you make afterward. Will you carry the pain like a chain, or will you use it like a chisel to shape something stronger? The Stoics believed that nothing external can truly harm us unless we give it permission. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in betrayal, your reaction is everything. Not the emotional flare, but the silent discipline you choose to cultivate next. Power isn't about making them regret it. It's about making yourself proud, not by pretending it didn't hurt, but by rising calmly and completely above what was meant to destroy you. And that rise doesn't come with anger. It comes with awareness. You begin by creating emotional distance, not to punish them, but to protect your clarity. You stop explaining yourself to those who already proved they don't care to understand. You stop handing out second chances like confetti, and you start recognizing that self-respect is not an attitude, it's a standard. When betrayal enters your life, it exposes more than just their character. It highlights where your boundaries were too flexible, where your standards were too forgiving, and where your loyalty was placed too carelessly. That's not shameful. That's your starting point. Psychologist Dr. Jordan Peterson said, "If you can't say no, your yes means nothing, and betrayal is the wake-up call that forces you to reclaim your no. No to energy that drains, no to apologies that never come, no to staying quiet just to keep others comfortable." You turn betrayal into power when you stop using it as a reason to distrust everyone and start using it as a filter to protect your energy. You become selective, not cynical, guarded, not cold, discerning, not distant. And when the urge comes to confront them, to make them see your worth, pause, ask yourself, What do I gain by trying to convince someone who already showed me they couldn't value me the first time? The truth is, what you needed was never in their hands. It was always yours to reclaim. So start rebuilding, brick by quiet brick. Build a life so solid that betrayal can't shake it. A peace so grounded that games can't reach it. A presence so powerful that those who tried to break you lose access to you forever. Because the ultimate revenge is not proving them wrong. It's living in a way where they no longer matter. Part 8. Emotional mastery, responding to betrayal with strategic stillness. Most people respond to betrayal with noise. They yell, they post, they plead for closure that never comes. But true strength doesn't explode. It pauses, it studies, it recalibrates, and then it moves in silence. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury, because when you react with rage, you become a mirror to the very person who wronged you. But when you stay composed, you reveal their weakness and reclaim your power." Stillness is not weakness. It's precision, it's control. It's the moment you stop chasing explanations and start observing behavior. It's when you realize that their inconsistency is the answer and their silence is already a confession. Emotional mastery means staying quiet when disrespected, not out of fear, but out of clarity. It means not responding to manipulation with panic, but with presence. It's when your silence speaks volumes and your detachment becomes your boundary. Psychologists call this response inhibition, the ability to pause between stimulus and reaction. And studies show it's a trait of emotionally intelligent, high-functioning individuals. Not because they don't feel, but because they choose not to be ruled by what they feel in the moment. You're not cold for walking away without a dramatic goodbye. You're wise. You've learned that your energy is too expensive to waste on people who feed off your reaction. Because many who betray you don't regret what they did. They regret losing control over you. So don't go back to prove a point. Don't explain to those who never listened. Don't make your pain a performance just so they might understand it. Understanding isn't the goal. Liberation is. When you master your emotions, you begin to move differently. You trust your gut more than their words. You wait, you watch, and when someone shows you who they are, you believe it the first time. That doesn't make you jaded. It makes you refined. You've stopped mistaking potential for patterns. You've stopped needing someone to say sorry just to heal, because healing no longer comes from them. It comes from within. And in this stillness, you find your edge. You stop being predictable. You stop being available to energy that confuses you. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding your heart. Emotional mastery means this. You never let someone pull you out of character just to meet them in their chaos. Instead, you rise above it, not loudly, not proudly, but deliberately, with stillness, with calm, with power that doesn't need to shout. Because when you are calm, you are in control. And when you are in control, no betrayal can break you. Part 9. The final reset. Redefining loyalty, trust, and inner peace. You've been hurt, lied to, forgotten by those you showed up for the most. But what matters now is not who broke you, it's who you become after the breaking. And that version of you deserves a new foundation, built not on fear, but on standards. Loyalty is no longer a blind gift. It's a mutual exchange. It's not about history, but alignment. Not about how long someone's been in your life, but how they show up in your presence and speak of you in your absence. From now on, loyalty means reciprocity. Trust means consistency, and peace becomes non-negotiable. Trust isn't just earned by gestures, it's confirmed by patterns. It's found in how someone holds space for your truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's inconvenient. And peace? It's no longer something you hope others bring. It's something you create, with boundaries, with clarity, with the sacred discipline of walking away from anything that violates your spirit. According to Dr. Joe Dispenza, Your personality creates your personal reality. If you want peace, you must become someone who doesn't invite chaos. If you want trust, you must stop entertaining inconsistency. And if you want loyalty, you must first give it to yourself, without exception. This is your reset. A quiet, powerful line drawn in the sand between your old self and the version of you that refuses to repeat the same lessons. No more watering dead gardens. No more explaining your standards. No more shrinking to keep someone who was never meant to stay. You are allowed to require more. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed to protect your energy without guilt. Because the man who has found his peace no longer chases people, closure, or chaos dressed as love. He walks away, not because he's heartless, but because his heart is finally whole. So take a deep breath. Not to forget the past, but to release it. Let go of the need for their apology. Let go of the weight you carried to prove your worth. You never had to prove anything. You were already enough. Now you just know it. And from this moment forward, let your life be the evidence, not of what they did, but of what you chose to rise into. You've earned your clarity, you've reclaimed your center, and now you are free. If you've made it this far, you're not just someone who listens. You're someone who feels, who reflects, who grows. You've walked through the storm, and instead of becoming bitter, you chose to become better. Let this be your reminder. You were not weak for trusting. You were not foolish for loving. You were simply human. And now, you're becoming whole. The path of the Stoic isn't about closing your heart. It's about protecting your peace. It's about standing still when the world demands a reaction. It's about honoring the quiet power of clarity. And that's what this space is for. Here at the Chill Stoic, we don't chase noise. We seek truth. We don't glorify pain. We transform it. We don't talk about healing. We live it. So if something in today's episode stirred something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let it reach the man still trapped in silence, the heart still afraid to trust again. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Not because we need numbers, but because you deserve spaces that remind you who you are when the world tries to make you forget. This is your line in the sand, your next chapter, your clean page. Now go live like you know who you are.